Oh, you're late, Emily. I'm starving. Get dinner ready, will you? The living room looked like it had been torn apart. My mother-in-law lounged on the couch with an air of entitlement, pushing me to my breaking point. That's it. I can't take this anymore. My name is Emily. I met my husband, Samuel, through work, and we got married. We're both dedicated to our careers and discussed how to balance work and family life before tying the knot. We decided not to have children, so we could focus on our careers and eventually become independent. We share the housework and support each other. And even though our jobs keep us busy, we get along well. We spend our weekends discussing work or relaxing together. However, there's one yearly event that I dread: vacationing with my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Samuel and I both value family, and since he respects mine, I try to do the same for his. I don't mind the trips per se, but my mother-in-law's attitude is unbearable. During the family meeting, Samuel shared that we wouldn't be having kids and would continue focusing on our careers. My father-in-law took it in stride, but my mother-in-law erupted. How could you marry someone who doesn't want children? I've been looking forward to grandchildren. Women should quit their jobs after marriage. They can't achieve anything meaningful in the workplace. My father-in-law retorted, and maybe you never achieved much, but Emily has a promising career. The argument escalated quickly, and Samuel had to intervene to calm things down. Since that disastrous meeting, my relationship with my mother-in-law has been strained. The day of our trip arrived, and I was feeling disheartened as I headed to the meeting spot to meet my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Samuel turned to me and said, "Eve, you really don't want to do this." "It's okay," I reassured him. "No worries, let's go." Our trip involved just an overnight stay. We had separate rooms for my in-laws, so we wouldn't have to spend the night together. A day or two of discomfort wasn't a major issue. When we arrived, my father-in-law greeted us warmly, but my mother-in-law remained persistently irritable. It was challenging to enjoy the trip while avoiding aggravating her. My father-in-law, recently retired but still working part-time, seemed eager to discuss his post-retirement life. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law couldn't resist making sarcastic comments. "Any woman who doesn't want kids is worthless. Poor Samuel, stuck with someone like you. You should quit your job and focus on housework," she muttered. Eventually, my father-in-law had had enough. "What's all this complaining about? We're supposed to enjoy this trip together. If you're upset, it's because you don't understand. She's always working and probably neglects housework. Can't you see how hard this is for Samuel?" Tired of the argument between my father-in-law and mother-in-law, we decided to head to the hotel early. But when we arrived and checked our reservation at the front desk, something was amiss. My name was missing from the reservation. The room intended for both of us was now booked as a single room for Samuel. When we inquired, the desk clerk informed us that my reservation had been canceled a few days earlier. Confused, we told my father-in-law and mother-in-law about the situation. While my father-in-law looked perplexed, my mother-in-law wore a triumphant smile. "It's only natural that you don't have a room, Emily. This is a family trip, and you're not part of the family. You should just go home," my mother-in-law said coldly. "Wait, did you cancel my reservation?" I asked, trying to process her words. "Of course, it was me," she replied nonchalantly. Father-in-law, Samuel, and I were all stunned. It was as if she didn't even grasp how outrageous her actions were. I sighed and said, "Fine, I'll leave if I'm not considered family." "Good, don't now," mother-in-law said dismissively. "I'm going too," Samuel said, standing up to leave with me. "What, even Samuel?" Mother-in-law's voice rose in disbelief. Father-in-law then stood up and said, "I'm leaving as well," his face showing a mix of confusion and resignation. He apologized to me and handed mother-in-law a few $100s before gathering his belongings. "Look, you can stay if you want, but I can't enjoy this trip under these conditions. From now on, no more family vacations for me," I declared. "What are you talking about? If you're leaving, at least let Samuel stay," mother-in-law demanded. "No way. The way Mom treats Emily is unacceptable. Plus, I'm tired of all the arguments," Samuel said firmly. So, leaving a bewildered mother-in-law behind, the three of us headed home. The flight back was the highlight of the trip. We enjoyed each other's company and had a great time. Mother-in-law, stubborn as ever, stayed at the hotel for one more night, spending every last cent father-in-law had given her. When she returned home, she and father-in-law had a massive argument. Samuel later mentioned that their relationship had been strained for a while, and he worried it would worsen with father-in-law now spending more time at home. His concerns proved accurate. A few days later, as I was enjoying a rare day off, the doorbell rang. There stood my mother-in-law, laden with bags. "What's going on?" I asked, stunned. I'm done living with my husband. I'm staying here for a while, she declared, ignoring my shock as she walked in and took over the living room. Feeling cornered, I called Samuel at work. Sorry to interrupt, but mother-in-law just showed up here, I said. What? Samuel's shock was evident. He tried calling his father, but there was no answer. I attempted to ask mother-in-law what had happened between her and father-in-law and suggested they should talk, but she ignored me. Meanwhile, she sprawled on our sofa as if she had every right to be there. What a filthy house. It's all because you work, Emily. It's unbearable living under the same roof as you. Samuel needs to divorce you soon, she muttered incessantly. I have resigned myself to enduring her complaints and went about my day as usual. Yet, mother-in-law never stopped badgering me. Samuel came home early that day to try and persuade her to leave, but she refused to budge. We couldn't reach father-in-law and were left with no choice but to tolerate her presence until we could figure something out. The following day, Samuel and I had to go to work, leaving mother-in-law behind. Just quit your job already, she demanded, but I chose to ignore her. When I returned home that evening, it looked like a crime scene. The place was in disarray. Wow, you're late, Emily. I'm starving. Get dinner started, mother-in-law said, lounging on the sofa like a couch potato. What happened here? It looks like a mess. Did you make this? I asked, noticing the drawers were emptied out. No, that's not the point. Why is everything scattered? You didn't prepare lunch, did you? I was looking for something to eat, she replied. I couldn't fathom how her search for food had led to such chaos. I voiced my confusion, but she ignored me. Then I realized my credit card was missing. My heart sank. It seemed likely that she had taken it. As I was debating how to address the issue, Samuel came through the door. Seeing the state of the house, he immediately started arguing with his mother. I pulled Samuel aside and whispered that my credit card was missing. He rubbed his temples and said, "We can't let her get away with this. She needs to face the consequences." "If you think so, I'll handle it," I agreed. We decided to confront mother-in-law about her actions. A few days later, Samuel finally managed to get through to his father, who had been unreachable while traveling with a friend. When he returned home, he found a note from mother-in-law on the table. It read, "I'm still upset about being left behind during the trip. I'm leaving this house." Knowing father-in-law would be coming over soon, Samuel and I adjusted our work schedules to be home. When we arrived, mother-in-law greeted us with, "Oh, you're home early," but her expression shifted dramatically when she saw her husband walk in. "What? Why are you here? Did you come to get me?" mother-in-law asked, her surprise evident. "No," father-in-law replied calmly, handing her a set of divorce papers. "I came to give you this." "What?" she gasped, clearly shocked. "Your selfish behavior has only escalated over the years, especially how you've treated Emily. Why can't you accept the woman your son chose?" "I've reached my limit. I want a divorce." "Fine, let's get a divorce. I have Samuel, so I don't need you. Emily, bring me a pen." "You're so useless," she added derisively. Though irritated, I quickly handed her a pen to expedite the process. After confirming there were no mistakes in the signed divorce papers, I turned to my mother-in-law. "I have something I want to show you." "What could be so important right now?" she snapped. I opened my laptop and showed her a video of her shopping. "I'm going to zoom in," I said, enlarging the image. In her hand was an illustrated credit card. "That credit card isn't yours, is it?" "Well, it's mine," I replied. "You don't have a credit card," mother-in-law argued. I had already confirmed with father-in-law that she hadn't been issued one. You see, mother-in-law had previously acquired a credit card without father-in-law's knowledge. Since then, he hadn't allowed her to have a credit card, I explained. Mother-in-law shot a defiant glare at father-in-law. "I'm the one who got it." Samuel responded coolly. "You didn't get it. This card is a limited edition. Look at the artwork. It was only available during a special collaboration." As Samuel pointed out, the credit card was indeed a limited edition. I had been particularly fond of its artwork and had kept it in a drawer as part of my collection. The card had been stolen by mother-in-law. While we could have suspended the card immediately, Samuel and I decided to let mother-in-law dig her own grave to gather undeniable evidence. "I have timestamps, photos, and transaction history," I said. When we checked the card's transactions and matched them with the times, mother-in-law was out shopping. "It looks like you've bought several luxury items too." "It's not true. I didn't steal any credit card," mother-in-law insisted. "Really? Then let's take these photos and the transaction history to the police. We need to find out who misused the card if it wasn't you." "The police?" Mother-in-law's voice trembled with shock. Of course, someone must have stolen it from us, I said, as she began making increasingly outrageous claims. The photo is fake. Who would even take such a picture? It must have been fabricated. I am innocent. I took that photo, I replied calmly. What? As I've mentioned before, I am a journalist. I'm skilled in tailing people and gathering photographic evidence when necessary. With a professional eye, I display photo after photo of mother-in-law purchasing various luxury items. If it wasn't you, the police will sort it out when we present all this evidence. Don't worry, and if the police don't get involved, we'll consult a lawyer. I understand that police might not act on civil matters like credit card misuse, but I've used the threat of police involvement to pressure you. Regardless, consulting a lawyer is a real option. I've been collecting evidence and photos to pursue claims for damages. Even if you're my daughter-in-law, I'm still your mother. What kind of awful person takes such pictures of family? Mother-in-law exclaimed. I remember you saying I wasn't family during the trip, I shot back. Her face turned crimson at my words. Flustered, she shoved father-in-law aside and bolted out of the house, while I helped father-in-law, who had fallen. I saw Samuel sprinting after her. Given Samuel's love for running, he was quick on his feet, and mother-in-law had little chance of escape. He caught up with her almost immediately. I informed mother-in-law that I would be reporting to the lawyer about her injuring father-in-law and her attempt to flee. Although father-in-law wasn't seriously hurt, he did strain his back and needed to go to the hospital. I told mother-in-law we would also be billing her for the medical expenses. Tearfully, she responded, I don't have that kind of money. I don't care, Samuel said firmly. I can't deal with parents like this, and handed her a letter of disownment, finalizing her eviction. As promised, we contacted a lawyer and began the process to sever ties with mother-in-law, including filing claims for damages and medical expenses. Later, we learned that mother-in-law had moved in with her estranged sister and brother-in-law to borrow money. Despite their business lending her the funds, mother-in-law now works tirelessly to repay the debt. Meanwhile, we have been living with father-in-law. It's not a big deal, but we were concerned about leaving him alone with his sore back. Father-in-law has been proactive in helping around the house, which has been a great relief to Samuel and me. His years of work experience have also provided valuable advice for our careers. Of course, if father-in-law's health deteriorates, we are prepared to support him fully. With mother-in-law out of the picture, the three of us are living harmoniously and enjoying the return of peaceful days.